Hey everyone, Mango7 here. How we doing today? Welcome to another episode of Epic 7. Today we're just going to discuss Luluca and whether or not she needs to be nerfed. You can probably guess what I think since I seem to be on the not nerf side for a lot of things, but I want to kind of talk about my reasoning and maybe understand where people are coming from and maybe try to get some information to those people too. I decided to check Reddit out to see if there are any memes or anything, and there were, so here we go. There's also a bunch of posts asking for buffs to her, so kinda, I was gonna say kind of surprising, but it really isn't, because people always kind of yell out for buffs or nerfs on something when something new comes out. And I understand there's a lot going on with Luluca. Maybe she is a little different than a lot of other heroes. Maybe she doesn't have a place right now. But just because a character does not have a current place and is not immediately bonkers where she is right now, doesn't mean she needs to be nerfed or buffed or anything like that. So I want to talk about her kit first. First of all, her skill 2 is obviously like what sets her apart from everything else. She's got an AoE defense break, which is fantastic, but her skill 2 is really where things shine. She's got a defense buff, and defense buff is honestly one of the best, if not the best buff in the game. The only thing I can even think of that might be better than a defense buff is possibly like immunity, I guess, and that feels like it's cheating, or invincibility or something like that. But defense buff is nutters, and it's one of those things that the harder the content gets in the game, the more required something like a defense buff is. If you remember really early game, where we had something like Elson, remember the difference it was between Elson keeping up permanent defense buff and not having Elson. Like the damage difference you took, the sustainability of your team, the ease of content, everything got so much easier with defense buff. You really need to not underestimate defense buff, because it is such a valuable thing to be. The other thing is, it also has a barrier, and while the barrier, we'll go to this post here, which says, Luluca's skill 2 overshadowed by even Dominials, kind of implying that Dominial's skill 2 is better than Luluca's skill 2, which is just straight up wrong. Barrier is the secondary effect of her skill 2, I think. Like, her skill 2 is her defense buff, primarily. That's what's amazing, that's what's great, that's what you really want it for. The barrier is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but it's not why you cast the spell. You cast the spell for the defense buff, and that's why you cast it. So comparing the barrier on Dominials, who does reflect, which is nowhere near as good as defense buff right now, versus Luluca's defense buff and smaller barriers, just nonsensical to me. So keep that in mind going forward. And I actually noticed, I scrolled down, this person here kind of said the same thing, and the poster is getting downvoted, which is kind of cool, I guess, that people kind of understand this, because that's not an argument to make in my head. The other thing too is she is a mage, and mages have some of the best artifacts like ever. Like, they have basically the best PvE or PvP artifact in Tagael's Tome. They also have one of the best, if not like the best, PvE artifact in Ayala Violin, which completely enables new units to do stuff that they can't do. Like Araminta, for example, dispelling on A11, or Luluca dispelling on A11, or Dizzy dispelling on A11, or something like that. There's so many different things you can do with mage artifacts. It's just kind of ridiculous. Like, they're so good. So having somebody that is so defensive like Luluca also have access to all of those things is awesome. Like, absolutely flippin' awesome. And that just opens up so many possibilities for the future, especially when you only have a 4-person limit on your team. That's the other thing you have to kind of consider. What else is there? Defense break on skill 3 is perfect for so many different situations. I don't think it's as good as Bellona's. I don't think anything like that, but Bellona also doesn't have a defense buff and a barrier, and Bellona is also not a mage, so it's completely different when you kind of compare the two. Other things to note is, I think the more content we get, the better somebody like this is going to get. And this is kind of true with something like Luluca as well. I remember when Luluca came out, people said she maybe wasn't so good right now because there was really nothing in the game that used her. And, you know, like, we didn't really need to AoE debuff like she did. We didn't really need to decrease combat readiness. We didn't really need those things. But you have to look for the future. Right now, we're in the state of the game where nothing is really difficult. And, like, forgive me if you're not at the end game right now, but for, like, end game players, there's really nothing in the game that's difficult outside of, like, high-end PvP. But that should change. I'm not saying it will, but it should theoretically change. And when that changes, when stuff gets harder, maybe it's different now with Dizzy being so OP and just being able to Dizzy everything, but let's pretend Dizzy doesn't exist. When stuff starts getting harder, somebody like Luluca is exactly what you want. Somebody that can provide the necessary defense down buff, somebody that can provide defenses, somebody that can provide utility artifacts, and somebody that doesn't take an extra healer slot or something like that. So I just guess what I'm trying to get at here is look to the future for Luluca, because just because she is not perfect right now, I've noticed that one of the things they really like to do is release a unit and then, like, 2 weeks later make them amazing. Like, I don't know why they keep doing it, but they always do it. And I don't mean, like, make them amazing by buff them. I mean make them amazing by releasing Abyss 81 to 90 right after, which Luluca is perfect for. Or so many different things like that. I'm trying to think of other examples, but I can't. But I know I had some in my head before I started talking. But there's just so many examples like that where something went from being okay to being kind of amazing later. Stuff like Iseria, you know? Like, Iseria has something super unique that nobody else can do right now in the game. And she was great, you know? She was unique and awesome and great. And then Tamarin came out, and she's kind of amazing with it too. So what I'm saying is, with how much content is coming out in the future, don't cry for buffs or nerfs or anything like that until we see what's going on, until we see what's coming with the patch, because I would probably bet that she's going to be pretty nuts for the stuff coming up. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit, kind of get that off my chest, and maybe that resonates with some of you. Maybe you have different opinions, and let me know what you think in the comments below, because I'd love to know if you think she needs a buff, if you're liking her, your thoughts, where you think she'll be useful in the future. Just let me know. So thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe as always, and I'll talk to you later. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.